All right, well, that brings me to the favorite part of my evening, and that is to introduce our guest speaker. And tonight it is Janeen Vosper. So she's tonight going to be talking about the story script, so a story to attract, influence, and convert. And for those of you that don't know Janeen, she's been on the show before, I think a couple of times, and she's back because she's really good at what she does, and I really like what she does. So she has got a business which is Speech Perfect. You'll find her on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and social media sites. She's a social media strategist. She helps people to craft their public speaking and to tell stories as well too, which is why she's here tonight. So let's put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Janeen Vosper.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's great seeing so many familiar faces on here. It's awesome. There's a few I haven't seen for a while. So hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen and then I will continue speaking. Nick, what time do you want me to wrap up? Just so that I've got everything clear.
Oh, about sort of 20 past.
Okay. All good. And I'm going, apologies, didn't mean to happen. And I'm going to move the chat and everything on my other screen. So if you find me looking sideways for any reason, it's because I'm looking at the chat and I'm looking at all the gorgeous faces for everybody. So it's nice to see faces rather than black screens as well. Part of what I've been doing for the last 40 years in business is collecting stories. I had lunch today with somebody that has got an amazing story named Stephen Dale. If anyone's ever heard him speak, Stephen fell off a cliff when he was 21. The paramedics worked about 45 minutes on him to bring him back to life. And they did so and spent the next 10 years rehabilitating himself from major brain and back injury. Amazing story. And I won't tell his story now. But it reminded me the power of stories. But when people start talking about stories, they're often thinking that they have to have a story like Stephen's. But we've got stories every single day. There's moments in our days that we can pull stories from. So I'm going to be looking at a few different aspects of storytelling tonight. I don't want you to be put off by not having the big story. Stephen's got about 7 big stories, and they're fascinating to listen to, but we've all got a story within us. And I really want to be able to show you how you can put that story together and share that story tonight. What I also love is some interaction as well. And if there's anything that you're going to ask, that you want to ask some questions along the way, please pop it in the chat and I'll keep an eye on it and I will answer it as I go. It is why stories? And as Nick said, there's, I've been doing a lot of social media or marketing over the years, and my background is 30 years coaching high-performing sales teams. And what I've discovered all the way through that, and you've probably realized it, many people yourself, is when you look and sound like everyone else, clients don't know why you are the right choice. And that's what makes the difference with story, is that you can stand out because your story is individual. Now, I've interviewed Aldwyn on my podcast, and Aldwyn's got incredible stories from her childhood, and that's where a lot of our stories begin, and it influences what we're doing now. When people start talking about their why, they'll often start talking about what I'm passionate about. But what your story does, it demonstrates your why and your passion without having to use that terminology. You can talk about what you do rather than saying, I'm passionate. And that is more connecting with people. But we want to be able to stand out. There's a hidden cost for blending in. It's quite a few of them. Weaker brand recognition. So I do a lot of support for people with their personal branding, individual branding, because you want people to remember you, and people will remember your story, but they may forget you, but I know that person, she had a great story. A price pressure. This is something in sales that I have found over the years. It's really important that the story behind the product or the service that you offer You don't want it to come down to a price comparison, and the story will make a difference, because that story is what builds connection with people. A missed emotional connection, being able to tell a story that is connecting, but people can feel it themselves. And I don't know about you, but who else has found this in 2025 is people want to buy from people. They actually really want to connect with people, don't they? So that's such an important aspect, is that emotional connection. You will have slower business growth because you're just not memorable. And that's what we want to be, memorable for all the right reasons. Actually, I'm going to be telling stories throughout this, little anecdotes. You want to keep a list of how many I tell, and that we'll see what happens at the end with that. And I remember somebody told me they were at a wedding, and the father of the daughter gave his speech. Now, he brought his two daughters up. He was a sole parent. And as he's giving his speech, he started talking about when the girls first got their periods. Now, that's probably not the best place to be doing it. So all your stories need to be memorable for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons, okay? Limited trust and authority. Your story will make you the expert. Again, your story is your why. Decreased team engagement. If you're working with your team, then they really want to be able to believe in you as well. And that's where that story is so strong. You want your team to be able to repeat your story as well as their own stories, or the business story. You want them to be engaged in it. Overlooked partnerships. Again, all of this is, a lot of it's coming through because people just don't know you. And stalled influence. You struggle to lead conversations. You want to be the standout person in your industry. You want to be seen as the authority. Talking about industries. Now, I went on to LinkedIn and I thought, well, I'll just search for something. Let's search for an accountant. Now, I found thousands of them. There's nothing here that separates one accountant from the other than maybe one's senior, one's junior, and one's a bookkeeper. You agree with me? Pop a yes or hi or something, or ask me questions about this as we go along. I really love the interaction. But you see what I mean, don't you? There's nothing here that separates one accountant from the next. Whereas if you've got some story, and I'm going to give you some examples of some of the others that have got just in their headline, it changes it up with a story. And that's just one platform that you can use in 220 characters, your story. A lot of the professionals that I see, particularly, and I'm going to refer to LinkedIn here at the moment because that tends to be where people have more of an opportunity to put their about section, and they'll often put their qualifications and credentials. And a lot of the time it doesn't matter. People don't necessarily need to know why you're the expert other than the evidence that you give them. And by saying that you've got a degree next to your name, it doesn't often matter. People really want to connect with your authority and you being the authority in it. So words create connection, and connection builds trust, and trust leads to sales. This is why it's so important that we get our stories put together in the right way. Why your words matter more than you think. People make emotional decisions and justify logic. Who's found that before? Thank you, Paniona. Yeah, the people will do this all the time. I don't know about you, but when I'm shopping for anything, if I decide that we bought a new caravan, and I think one of the most important things, it had to have some orange in it. I mean, how's that? It was orange. It's, an $80-something thousand, but that was a priority. It had to be orange. So that was sort of no logic in that at all, but it was emotionally connected with the color orange, as you can see here. It's actually a very good caravan as well. The right words spark connection and differentiate you instantly. We want to be able to stand out. Your story humanizes your brand and shows people why you do what you do. That is the important factor I really want you to take away tonight more than anything, is this shows your why. It demonstrates your why and your passion. So you never have to use those words again. And you become more relatable, trustworthy, and memorable. But thinking about all these reasons why it's so important to get the story right. I'll talk about later where you can use your story and how you can get that message out to the world. When everyone says the same thing, your story becomes a separator. The same message I'll keep repeating all the way through this is the story makes the difference. Okay, I flick through that quickly. I don't want to flick through. Now, here's some photos of me doing some different things. And I haven't really thought about this for a while. I pulled it up and put it into the slide deck. But if someone wanted to throw me one of these and I'll tell a story about it, or use all the time, how much current emotion. I agree with you, Peter, there. Any particular one?
The
Christmas.
one with you in a racing car.
The racing car one. I knew someone had picked the Christmas one. Yeah, look at the Santa. Okay. I'll go back a little bit. I run a retreat, a branding retreat with a couple of other lovely ladies. And this year, I help people pull their story together and then help them create it. This year, I realized I had never really fully investigated my story, and I took some quiet time to think about, and I actually went through the process that I go through with, who else does that? You sometimes don't go through the same process as yourself, but I did this particular time. And it reminded me that when I was 12 years old in grade 7, now we're talking the 70s, it's a very different world in the 70s than it is now. I had an absolute bully of a teacher. He was a horrible man. He had 4 daughters, and there was some rumblings and stories in the neighborhood about that, but wasn't what I knew as a 12-year-old. I just knew he was a bully, and he allowed the boys in the class to bully the girls and hurt them, to hit them. It put up with it for months, because 12-year-old in the 70s, you do not talk back to teachers, and they are a level of authority. And one day I had just absolutely had enough, and I refused. I stood up. He told me to sit down. I stayed standing, and I said to him, I refuse to be in this classroom with a bully. And I walked to the vice principal's office, and I sat there until he could see me. And then I told him exactly the same thing. I refused to be in the classroom with a bully. A couple of weeks later, that teacher was no longer at the school. Again, there possibly was other stories going on. But what I realized, me thinking back to this story, is I found my voice. And what I've been doing for the last 40 years is helping people find theirs. There's moments to it. So part of this story, the Christmas one, I've always been that rat bag, that outrageous person that will always do anything. And Santa kept saying, I want someone to sit on my lap. And nobody would. So, of course, I was the one that jumped to it. It's the same with the racing car one. I was given the opportunity to go around Lakeside this is one of the, I don't even know what sort of cars they are. You know, the ones that race at Bathurst, those ones. What do they call them, those cars?
The V8s? Was it the V8s?
That's the V8s, I think. Yeah. And we're doing, 250, 300. I have no idea. It was really, really fast. But again, it's something I've always done, is just go, okay, I'm confident enough to say, put my hand up and say yes. I'll have a go at anything. And I think that's the continuation of that spirit of that 12-year-old is, if I want to do something, I'll go do it and make sure I'm seen. And the other one you said about the boat, that's down off Wilson's Prom, the southernmost part of Australia's mainland. And again, all the people traveling with didn't want to go on the boat. So I just said, I'm going. And I've got some amazing videos of seals nearly jumping on board the boat. It was quite incredible. The interesting part, I would like to think, is that it's part of who I am. When I helped at the Commonwealth Games, they gave me a megaphone, and I sat up on one of the lifesavers stands and welcoming people into the swimming area at the Gold Coast for the Commonwealth Games. It was putting your hand up, it's taking adventures, it's saying yes to things. And that's part of who I am and what I do and help people. So there's lots of stories that within your life. But the reason I want to put this up here particularly is for you to start thinking about the stories in your life. It can be the travel, it can be the family, it can be the awards, and it's written a couple of books. It's, what's the important moments or the interesting moments, and what's the relevance of telling those stories? And we'll go into that as well. So we want to learn to shape a story that actually builds connection. And we'll go through that now. How can we do that? Because that's what we want to be. You want to be the one that stands out amongst the crowd because of that energy in the story. So this is the story formula. You'll see this, go through this a few times. And happy for you to take a photo of the screen. So the first part is the story. And that's what I just gave some examples of what you can find. They don't have to be, like I mentioned, Stephen's stories of real trauma. They can just be points within your life. They can be an anecdote for, you're driving to a meeting and you're getting the green lights all the way. So the anecdote can be, how isn't it great in business? You're on the right track when you get the green lights all the way. There's stories in every single moment that you can find. It's just looking for them. When I first started thinking about stories, I actually had a spreadsheet. And when I was training either on speaking or on sales or branding, I would pop the highlight of that story in as a note under speaking. And then I would deliver it. Now I haven't done that for quite a long time, but it's a great way to start. So you really want to speak from experience. But I partly told someone else's story as well, which you can do if it's relevant to what you're doing. The second part of the storytelling is a transformation. What makes a difference? Me, for that 12-year-old, finally having enough, the line in the sand and saying that's it. That's my turning point. And, that was only a 12-year-old. There's been many, many turning points throughout my life where the same sort of thing has popped up. I remember, finding that confidence to speak up at a funeral when you're traumatized. There's moments all the time. So those turning points, those transformations. So I really want you starting to think about things that might be relevant for you. What's the objective of you telling that story? What desired result do you want? That's such an important factor as well. Why bother telling it if you haven't got an objective to telling? The relevance, this is such an important aspect, is how can you tie that back to what you're doing or the point that you want to make or how you help people. And the last part is your voice. And as a speaker trainer, that's such an important part, to be able to deliver it in an authentic way, but deliver it without, every second word being an or not knowing how to put the right tone to it. You want to be able to tell the story, because if it's your story, it's got to come from the heart and it wants to be delivered in a way that people will connect with it. And that's where the authenticity comes in, is to how it's delivered. I popped this photo up. So we'll work through those 5 points. I popped this photo up. This is a flower farm. One of my clients, and he's got a little bit more of his story coming up, is he had a flower farm in what was Rhodesia. It's Zimbabwe now. And there was a lot of turmoil at the time, and his farm was taken over and his family's life was threatened, and they moved to Australia. Now when we worked together, he just ran like dot points down with those points. And I just found that absolutely fascinating. And changed him around to make him relevant to the story he's going to tell. But that was his story, and he didn't realize the connection with what he does now, but also didn't realize the power in that story, because there was a lot of connection with, he helps people with their finances now, and he went from, you know, from success to zero to a new country to success again and helping other people. So there was connection in that. But figuring out what your story is. So leap in the net will appear. A lot of people are concerned about, is this story going to be interesting enough? Is it relevant? Which is, you need to focus that on that. But just start telling stories. If you're not a story, I was working with a client the other day, and everything, he had to do a speaking gig, and every answer he gave me was in one word. And I said, do you do that all the time? And he said, yep. I said, is there any way that you might think you can speak in more words? Probably. It was all one word answers. And so I gave him homework to do the first week. He was not allowed to answer anything in less than 5 words. And then, because he had to start telling stories. And that was a very big deal for him. I collect stories from a variety of sources, as I've already talked about. Just start listing things and education, connections you had as a child, things that you had as an adult. And often you'll find not every bookkeeper is started off as a child playing with, what do we used to play with? Rods. There's a few people on here old enough to know that what the school rods were that we used to play with. That doesn't mean they're going to
pick up sticks.
No, they were actually coloured rods, Nick. There's a few people on there that will remember the coloured rods, I'm sure. Anyone remember the coloured rods? Yeah, Melinda. Yeah. You know, that doesn't mean you necessarily, that's why you became a bookkeeper, but there'll be more to it. It'll be, you know, there'll be something. You'll be always the kid that was trying to think about ideas to raise money or whatever it was. And then we're going to learn the characteristics of a good story. I remember coloured cubes. Yeah, that's how, I think they brought them back now for kids doing maths. So there was little tiny white ones that were 1, and then there were big orange ones, I think that were 10, and everything in between, different lengths. So we learned to add up to 10, and percentages, I think that's what they were for. And observe how professional presenters use stories. There is a British comedian, Michael McIntyre. Has anyone heard of him and they listen to him? Brilliant, isn't he? Absolutely brilliant. And he tells incredible stories. And so don't just listen to his stories, which are hilarious. Listen and pay attention to the way he tells the stories. That's such an important factor as well. All right, there is a formula which we're not going to look at, but it is a formula that's used in just about every rom-com you've ever watched, every novel you've ever read, and it's the hero's journey. One of the examples I give when I'm doing the full workshops with this is talking about Sylvester Stallone in Rocky, and it actually is the hero's story. And it starts off ordinary world, a call to adventure, which Rocky was to have the fight, refusal to the call. You'll see this, once you read this formula through, you'll go, this is it. Refusal for the call, I'm not good enough. Getting a mentor, I think what's his mentor's name? Mickey. Then, you know, he said, I'll train you to fight. Crossing that first threshold. Same for script writing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is patriotic. It's the same with the films as well. Crossing the threshold, you test and allies and enemies, who's there to support you, and other people are trying to pull you down. Approach the innermost caves. So it's really got to go back into yourself to figure out why you would be just continuing on. Imagine Rocky, you know, that's sort of, why am I doing this? And there's a huge ordeal. He had to get fit again. He was unfit. There was this whole mental thing about not being good enough. And the reward is that running up the stairs. I think that's one of the most iconic things in any movie, isn't it? When he's running up those stairs, and the music that went with it was just brilliant. And that's his road back to, you know, he's good with his girlfriend and this whole resurrection, and then return to the elixir. So you'll find that this hero's journey, and as Patty Otter said, she's produces movies, yes, that hero's journey is something that's used all the time. Start paying attention to it. This is part of the thing with stories too. Start paying attention to how that looks in the things that you're watching. It's, I don't want to do it. There's somebody comes along and helps, but I don't know. I get really frustrated when there's something at the end. Can't they just have a happy ending right near the end? And then something goes wrong, and then something goes right again, and it ends up good. All right. What we're going to be looking at here is a transformation. So that's your T is transformation. And this is the framework that I work with my clients all the time. It's much simpler. It's the moment. So start with a snapshot in time. And what moment helped define who I am today? So go thinking about my 12-year-old story. That was that moment in time. And as I said, there's other stories that I have depending on what I'm working with at the time that are other moments in time. That point. Second part is the realization. What did that moment teach you? So what lesson did I learn that now guides me? And the third point is how you got from there to here. So what shaped my current approach of philosophy? So from my 12-year-old story, what I've realized from that moment, and then as life progressed in all the moments where I've seen injustices, or I've seen that people don't have a voice, or I've seen that there's something that I need to speak up on, that's when I've chosen to do it. And I realized that that's in me. Sometimes that sort of method can upset people, but it's also something that's very powerful in me. And I've had people say, because I do put a little bit of my personal opinions up on social media, I've had people say to me that they would choose to work with me. They don't always agree with me, but they choose to work with me because that's what they believe authenticity is all about. That's part of what your storytelling does too. It makes you authentic. The stand, and that's it, what you believe in and what you stand for. And the last part is the mission. Why do you do what you do now? What's the legacy that so I've written all this in your first person, what I'm building or the difference I want to make. But that's the 5 points that I work with. You can see that's much simpler than the full hero's story. Who likes that? Does that give you a little bit of, pop a message in the thing, because I can't see everyone on the screen because I'm going to see a few people at a time. Yeah, Linda, look good. Can you think of a story or a line in the sand moment, or that snapshot, like the simplicity framework? I'm going to use it. Thanks, Nick. Can anyone think of a moment for themselves personally that they want to share, just in a one sentence or half a sentence or a dot point in the chat? Is there a moment that you hadn't really thought of before and realized that, yeah, actually that was the moment? And I've had people that have said for them the moment was ambush in Afghanistan. That would be a moment. Tim? Certainly would be a moment. There'd be huge stories around that, I can imagine. And many stories, Linda. Yeah. And when you really start thinking about it, there's quite incredible the amount of stories that you will come up with. And as you see, as we work through that, there's this relevance to it as well, which is so important. Yeah, lots of stories. I know you do. My taxi story with a murderer. See, that grabs me already, Mike, and also the ambush in Afghanistan. See, you don't even need to say a few words like you've done, and then we're intrigued. And then how do you build on it, and how do you make it relevant, and what's the purpose of doing it as well? So let's have a look at the objective, and that's the important part. What is the objective of you telling a particular story? Reputation, yeah. All right, objectives of telling a story. sheep I befriended getting slaughtered in front of me when I was 6. That would be quite traumatic. And that's a lot to do with what, Eldwin, with what you're doing with the animal rescues. I would imagine that would be really put a moment for you where you're going, that's not going to happen on my watch again. Objectives of telling a story. We want to capture attention. Now we want to be able to, so what you're doing, whether you're writing it or you're speaking it, you want to draw people in. Create connection, as we've said a few times, this is such an important factor. Help, and it really does help the audience build trust when they get to know you. Clarify complex issues. This is something that I find with a good storyteller, but they've got complex information that they want to present. Somebody presented something to me. I'm just trying to think who it was and how simple it was. And it's gone from me now. But it was the simplest way to describe something that was really complex. But it was done through story and it was done through analogy. Inspire action. So it does motivate people to take the next step because they've built that connection with you. They've got an emotional buy-in usually, and they then trust you. It makes the messages more memorable. I remember years ago, I used to work as the general manager of sales for Australia's largest privately owned first aid supply company. I actually secured every single mine in the Bowen Basin as part of our customer base, but I had about 20 sales reps working for me as well and used to run first aid. I didn't run first aid courses. We had a nurse paramedic that did our first aid courses. She was amazing. And she would tell stories all the time. And people loved doing her first aid courses because it was the stories that made the difference then, rather than trying to remember the first aid information. And I remember Wendy said to me in one of her stories, she explained something about somebody having a car accident and getting out of the car when they shouldn't have. But the point that I took away from that was if it's not normal, it's not normal. And I really want everyone to take that away about first aid or health now, okay? If it's not normal, it's not normal. And I remember years later, I was on the phone to my grandmother. She was still living at home at 96, amazing lady, just so full of, there was nothing mentally wrong with her at all. I could have great conversations. And a conversation started to go all over the place. It was slurred. She was forgetting words. It wasn't normal. So I said, now I'm going to hang up now, and I'm going to get my uncle lived next door. I'm going to get Uncle Ray to come over, and because I think there's something wrong. And anyway, I hung up, got Uncle Ray. Nan had walked halfway next door, but she was having a small minor stroke. It wasn't normal. I didn't remember what to do with a stroke. I didn't remember what the things to look for, but what I remembered was from that story, if it's not normal, it's not normal. So that's what your story is. What is that you want to know that makes you memorable? Yes, Peter, you do have to know where to start and stay on point. That's an important part of the story. And that's part of what the objective is. What's the objective of telling that story? So for me, telling that story is I wanted you to realize that facts fade, but stories stick in people's minds. What's the objective? It builds credibility. It influences emotions. So it shifts people how they feel about you personally, and depending on what you're doing and your products as well. And again, I used to sell defibrillators. So I would tell stories about defibrillators. They weren't my personal stories, but they were stories that we had a selection of, and they were usually, there'd been someone in the media that had had a heart attack on a golf course and was saved with the golf course's defibrillator or something. So that sometimes they're not your own stories, but they get the message across. Again, right from the beginning, we said this differentiates you. It drives decisions, and people will actually take action, and it reinforces the value and your business and what you stand for. So all of those are such an important part of those objectives of telling a story. So thinking about what your objectives are. Yeah, that quote, thank you, Linda, for sharing that quote. That's African Maya quote, remembering people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel. And that's exactly right. And that's what we do with stories. Maya Angelou, yes, thank you. All right, the relevance of telling a story, which is a bit different than the objective. Okay, these are a couple of bits of stories from people. Now, I worked with 4 partners in an accounting firm, and they all got, we pulled apart 1,000-word story, 300-word story, their about section for their LinkedIn, the headline for LinkedIn, a little bit that went underneath their picture on their website. They had an Indian team working with them as well, and so we did that. We met all these stories, and this is one of Dan's, but there has to be the relevance to it. So he drives 2F category racing cars, and that's a big part of his life. But what's the relevance for him? Now, this is only a tiny section of his 1,000-word story, but what's the relevance of him driving cars and being an accountant? And why would you choose him? And that's what that last sentence is. The focus, discipline, and clarity it takes to race at speed mirrors his approach to business leadership. So I haven't said he's a great leader. And it's the strength, licensing, and working parts of a team or business, how they fit together. So this is all relevant. It makes his racing car component of his story relevant. And that's what we want to be able to do. There'll be things that make you unique. So this made Dan's unique from his other 3 partners. And they all had quite unique stories as well. But it's that, and it's then how to word it so it builds that relevance with what you're doing. Okay? That's what we want. And this is, again, this is the gentleman who, again, he was an accountant. He was the one that had the flower farm. So this is part of his story, and he knows when to stand firm both morally and strategically. He's guided by values born from adversity. So this is the gentleman that was kicked off his farm in Africa. These days Cecil doesn't have to work, but he chooses to, especially with those ready to start again, just like he did. He believes everyone deserves a second shot, and more importantly, a strategy for that second shot. So you can see he helps people with their financial planning, all of the finance parts of the business. And then he said, oh, I love cricket. So then we got the relevance of having cricket. And yes, when he's not in a strategy session, he's likely watching the cricket. The long game, after all, is where he's always excelled. Can you see this, how this works? Who loves this? By the way, am I speaking to myself? Who absolutely loves the way this has been put together with the relevance? This is an important part, and it is simple. Thanks, Penny Otter. But it's making sure that what you're saying in your story is relevant. I haven't heard from some people. Are you there still? You haven't fallen asleep? What is it about these 2 stories and the relevance that stands out for everybody? Just pop something in the chat if you can find it. Look through. Connection, everyone's asleep. If I put you all to sleep, I'd like to think so. Thanks, Mike. Not just the story, but the relevance. And look, thank you. I'm enjoying it. Thanks. Obviously, I haven't put everyone to sleep. And this is such an important factor. So that's the R in the story, is the relevance of you telling the story. And your voice is the why. And as a speaker trainer, this is such an important factor on how you deliver your story. But it's not necessarily here in a webinar or standing on stage with your voice, which I'm going to be talking about now, but it's also the voice presence when you're writing anything. So who are you coming in as a brand that is your voice? But we're going to talk about now components of voice delivery that I really want you to, and the best way to decide whether you're doing a good job of it is to record yourself. That's the simplest way to video yourself and see how you're going with it. I'm part of a few not-for-profit groups that work with speakers. So if anyone wants to know about any of those, they're in Brisbane, Gold Coast, and Sydney, and Melbourne, and Hobart. So let me know, and they're a great way to practice, get an opportunity to practice on a regular basis. So part of what you want to be thinking about when you are delivering anything, you're standing on stage, when you're using your voice to tell your story, is your pace. If something is really exciting, we really want to make sure that people have this component, they want to understand that, and they get excited with you, then we need to speed it up. If we want to make sure that we deliver something that is important and we want something to be particularly memorable, this is the takeaway. We slow it down. We've got to have some variety in the pace. Variety in the pitch. The pitch is whether it's higher tone. Ladies tend to be higher tone. Men tend to be a lower tone. We're all basically around in the middle, just having some variety in that, taking up higher as the pace goes faster, bringing it down lower as it goes slower, but just the variety. I know I've worked with some people who have had confidence and good speakers, but not enough variety, light and shade in their pitch. So we've had them reading children's books as if they were reading to 3-year-olds. So if you know that's something you need to practice, anytime you're presenting, practice is the key. Pause is definitely the most powerful component you can use when you're speaking. There's a whole lot of reasons. I would do a whole lot of our workshop on pause, but it's important to remember, take a breath, allow people to catch up with you. Yes, they do often speak nervous, or they give you one-word answers, Stephen. That's another thing people do when they're nervous as well. Projection, if you have the opportunity to speak anywhere and somebody says, would you like a microphone? Your answer is yes. Absolutely. You never, if there's a microphone there, you just always use it. We do not need to project your voice. I taught aerobics for 10 years, and it was at the side of a 50-meter pool outside and delivering an aqua aerobics class with the noise of the water. And I had to learn how to project, not shout. But the best thing they ever got eventually was a microphone, so I didn't have to do that either. At the tone of the voice, is this something that's got emotion behind it? Is something that's happy? Ensuring that the tone and the tone matches what you're telling in the story. Diction, I work with quite a few people who are English isn't first language. So their diction, pronunciation, and enunciation, it's important to get that clear, particularly if English is not your first language. And body language. So it's all got to match. Everything that you're delivering has got to match, so that the expression on your face, the way you stand, the way you are delivering with different gestures, it all matches your delivery to match your story. Any questions about that section at all? Silence does the heavy lifting. It certainly does, Tim. Pause is my favorite thing to do when I'm speaking. Real stories lead to real connections, and clients choose people, not just services. And as I said right at the beginning, and a few people here agreed with me, in 2025, the more we get to know about people, the more we want to deal with individuals, rather than, if we want to buy some junk, we'll jump online and we'll go to Temu and we'll buy the junk. But when we're investing in ourselves, we will find the people that we connect with to invest in. So your story is not just in one spot. You can use it everywhere that your brand shows up. So being able to condense that story as well. So it's not just 1,000 words or 300 words. As I said, for a LinkedIn headline, 220 characters to be able to get that message across. Then you want to be able to use that story and versions of it everywhere, and ensuring that people really do get to connect with you because of that story. Like, don't just save it up for one place. absolutely use it everywhere that you're doing any marketing whatsoever. And places your about page on your website is a place that you can use your story. So it's a story with your qualifications and credentials and everything without being a resume. Nobody needs to read a resume. Even the about section here or the about section on your LinkedIn profile, and that's written to a very different formula than the one on your website. That it's got to engage people straight away. They're not going to read any further. And the LinkedIn headline and about section, the same deal. They've got to engage immediately. And there's particular formulas to do that. Social media, discovery calls, speaking opportunities, and proposals and presentations. If you're doing a speaking opportunity, then if you've got a 45-minute presentation somewhere, depending on if your presentation is mostly your story, then you can weave it in all the way through. But it's really good to sort of stick to about a 10-minute component of a 45-minute and a 3 to 5 minute of a 20-minute about the story, but continually weave it through or weaving through anecdotes throughout. First person story versus third person. Great question, Vlad. If you are using it on your web page, it's third person. If you're using it on your LinkedIn, it's first person. So there's, again, that formula on LinkedIn, what's the problem, and then how I help it as the first person. But the website is, it can be both ways. I think it looks more professional if it's third person. Does that answer? Anyone got any opinions on first and third person? Who was the LinkedIn expert that was on here?
Yeah, it's me.
Who's that?
Jeff.
Jeff, yeah. So you would have the about section in a first person?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. It's how people are going to deal with you directly. Right? And yes, and any proposals and presentations, part of that is that story as well. When I send through speaking, I'm trying to think, speaking proposals, I'll use that word, it's written down there. I will include part of directing what they want, but also my story part of it as well. So it just, again, gets them to know me and how I might help them. Picking the story that's relevant to who they are and what outcomes they want. That's the important factor, or how I would tell it in a way that is what their outcomes and what is relevant to them. Okay. So again, going through those, I love acronyms. When I teach sales, I've got a sales one. When I teach speaking, I've got one that says speak. So 5-letter word acronyms. It helps me remember, but it also helps everyone else remember them as well. So your story, how you've had transformation. What's the objective of you telling that story? And the most important part I keep coming back to is the relevance of you telling that story, and then using your voice. So any questions about anything there before any comments? A few people that have chimed in with different things. Any other comments on anything that we've got? Okay. Right. I am running 2 more half-day online workshops in the rest of the year, 22nd of September and 15th of December. I only have 3 people in every workshop, and I've got 1 person booked into each of those at the moment. The half-day, I go through a lot of what we've done here, but I help you write it. I help you get all of the words done, and then you send it through to me what you've done, and then I edit everything again. You get your signature story, which is 1,000 words. You get a 300-word summary, which you can use for those speaker bios. 60-second pitch, which is really awesome as well. And image caption text. So again, with those accountants, what makes the 4 accountants different? Even on their website now, they've just got, a 30-word type of thing that's underneath their images. What's your core message? Which is, it really interesting as well. Because my background is sales and speaking, this is where this part of it comes into, is what's the purpose of the story and how we're going to put it together. But it's nice to have a story, but we also want to be able to make some sales because of it. And what I'm going to also offer is the LinkedIn headline and the LinkedIn About section as well. So it's really crafted that it's you, and there is a particular formula for that LinkedIn section also. So if anyone is interested in that, I think, yeah, I thank you very much for putting that link in the chat as well. They will go quick because there's only 3 people on the workshops. They are extremely affordable because for those that know me, I'm doing a lot of things now like holidaying and traveling and lifestyle choices. So when I run these, I'm doing them because I absolutely love doing them. And I love seeing often the tears when people see something that they didn't realize just incredibly how powerful it was for themselves, but just how it changes how people present themselves because of that story. So let me know. Thanks, Ray. So that's me. Any questions before I'll stop sharing? Any questions before I hand back to Nick at all? Who's going to start putting the story together, and who's interested in me helping them do it is another thing as well, because it's one thing, it's like anything we do. If we go to do it ourselves, then we tend not to do it. But when it's done for you, so this is a done for you. Teach you how to do it, you write it out, and I edit it. So it's done for you. And you've got all of those components within a few days. Thanks, Nick.
Awesome. I love those frameworks. I've probably seen some of those before. Some of them I don't think I have. But they're great for crafting the story. I've got lots of stories to tell, and I can sort of tell lots of stories that have got no point at all. So I bring it around to actually having some sort of purpose. I think it makes all the difference.
I love Tim's comment here. He reckons he could see me, no sincerity, but he could see me standing up to the teacher. Thanks. Thanks, Tim. Yeah. It's
If I could speak to that, Janeen, what I possibly didn't construe as well as I'd like to is that, was it 7 years old that you were, or was it 13?
I was 12. I was in grade 7.
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm just saying that 12-year-old version of you would be very proud of what she grew into.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. 70s. There's a few of us that are I think on here that were in school maybe in their 70s, and it was a very different time. Yeah.
Indeed it was, yes. Yes, I think I might have been the most caned boy in the school in the 70s, so hard to believe, I know, but yes, it was a very different time.
I think that the only reasons I missed out is because I was a girl.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments, questions? This is your chance before we move on to our door prize. So don't disappear yet, because we do have a door prize tonight that Janeen is offering. So any last comments? 3, 2, 1. Gone. Too late. Had your chance. All done. Tell us about the door prize, Janeen.
The door prize is half an hour. We can work together, and it can be on any topic that you want. So it can be speaking or sales or storytelling or whatever it might be.
So tapping into any of your talents that you can help people with.
Yeah, so it's not just a strategy call. It's actually tell me what you want and let's work together and give some ideas in that 30 minutes. So it's valued at $197.
Fabulous. Excellent. And I know anyone's worked with Janeen absolutely raves about it. So well worth it. All right, let's bring up our wheel of names, see who our lucky winner is tonight. Don't leave now, because you have to be in the room to win this. If you do leave, we just go and redraw it, and until we find someone in the room. So everybody's name is in the wheel. So let's give it a spin, see who our lucky winner is tonight. Oh, and there it is. And hear it spinning. And where is it? Sam. Sam, are you in the room? Sam, I am. It's just having a look through the,
don't-
I think Sam has disappeared. Well, there we go. So Sam is gone. So anyone that knows Sam, let them know. And let's spin the wheel again and see who our second chance winner is. And there it is, spinning around, getting close, and it lands on Jeff Gordon. Jeff, are you still here?
He was.
Oh, no, he's still here. There he is. There he is.
Yeah, I'm
He's right
still
there.
here.
Fabulous. Well, you are our lucky winner tonight. So definitely a good connection there with Janeen, and particularly with what you're doing as well too. So we will introduce you by email tomorrow, and
Okay.
then you can organise to connect up together.
Thanks,
Okay.
Nick. Thanks, Janeen.
Well done. All right. Well, that is our show for tonight. Now's probably a good time to save the chat. So the chat has got the call online tools in. It's got people's LinkedIn profiles, connections, whatever you're doing there. So if you do want to follow up with people or connect on any of the social media platforms they've given you, feel free to go and connect, because after all, that's sort of what this is about. We live in an AI world, but let's keep it human, where we do connect with each other and have real conversations and develop stories. And I can tell you that the stories that come out of people's mouths much more compelling than those that come out of ChatGPT. If you do want to watch this again, it will be up on the Smash Go YouTube channel tomorrow afternoon. If there's someone else that you think might benefit from it, you grab the link, send them to the channel, and they can check it out there as well too. If you're not a subscriber of the channel, now's a good time to head over there and do it. The link is in the chat. And if you do subscribe and hit that little bell when you subscribe, then you'll get a notification as soon as this episode is uploaded. And of course, we've got about 8 years worth of episodes in there too. So there's a real sort of grab bag of whatever topic that you are interested and excited about as well too. So that is our show tonight. Thanks, Janeen. That was
You're most welcome. I was going to say, Nick, and I have got a podcast. It's called We Are Women, and I interview women from all around the world, have done for nearly the last 10 years, and have incredible, amazing women with stories to tell. It's not just for women. The learnings and the stories are really relevant for everybody. So it's called We Are Women, and I encourage everyone to have a look at it.
Fantastic. I'll put that into chat as well. I don't suppose you got a link to it. You can find it. It's on.
It's on
iTunes
every
and Spotify.
every YouTube channel. There's a few We Are Women. Just finding the one that's got my name on it as well, and also
Fantastic. Excellent. And Melinda highly recommends it as well too. So excellent. Fabulous. All right. Well, that is our show for tonight. Thanks, Janeen, for coming along and inspiring us once again. Thanks for those frameworks. Thanks, everyone, for coming along tonight. And go and enjoy your evening. And we'll see you here again next week. Have a good night.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.